I thought we would start the event today, and it says keynote, but really just more of an introduction into innovation. And I think this will be a nice lead into the conversation that Brian and I are going to have around low code, no code. But I think to kind of kick off innovation, if you want to roll to the next slide, what I want to do is, we all in this room from a business perspective, we think about economically what's changing. We think about the socio, the political, and the cultural changes, right? And those are becoming very even. But I would kind of argue and suggest to everyone that we should be looking at the technological change as well. And at Ulta Beauty, that's what we're doing. We're thinking about the future. Many of us in innovation would like to say that we're helping to future-proof Ulta. And so if we think about technological change and kind of like what are we looking at, let's look, I'm going to do a little bit of tech for all the business folks here, but let's look at technological change over what is about the past 7 decades. So I don't know if anybody knows anything or has heard of Moore's Law, right? But this is basically the number of, in 1965, what this chart is showing is it's the number of transistors on a microprocessor. It means the amount of compute capability. And you can see that it's just, it's absolutely, the trajectory is incredibly high, right? The original idea was that the amount of transistors on a microprocessor would double every 2 years. Okay, so it's like this massive compute capability, and then you can roll to the next slide. So what does it really mean? It's like, who cares, right? Who cares about this? But ultimately what it means is that means that there's a greater capacity to crunch the numbers. Look at all the data that everybody in this room, all the marketers have been analyzing for years. Now you guys can do it. You can do it much more intelligently. You can do it faster at a far less cost, because as that was happening, right, it's basically taking much less power. So you can do a lot more, not as much energy, and that means, you can go to the next slide, that means it's going to be much more cost effective. Okay, it's really cost effective to be able to get to all of this data and intelligently mine it. And there is this idea that's been around for probably a number of years now. Our friends at Google should know it, because Moore's Law fundamentally has been dead for a little while. We've gone way beyond that original projection of doubling transistors on a microprocessor. This is in fact a chip. The chip is from a company called Sentient, and 2 years ago they shipped their millionth chip. So if you look at that, this is a real thing. I mean, think about the power of what that can do. And, all of us today have our phones, and we do an incredible amount of stuff on a tiny little, microprocessor, right? So we can move to the next one. And so now, again, consider this compute capacity and everything that it's been allowing us for all these years. Now let's think about the data. There's a comparable theory related to storage and data. And this is essentially that, what this is saying is that the amount of data that we can put on devices, that was also to double every 13 months, right? So you've got the compute, you've got storage. For anybody, so many people in this room are way younger than I am. But in 1956, right, IBM shipped the first 5 megabit device, 2 refrigerators. And then if you want to click to kind of build this, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but anybody remember CD-ROMs? Like just 30 years, after 30 years, we're now at 900 megabytes, but on a little device. So from 2 refrigerators, 5 megabytes, to a little device, a CD-ROM at 900. And then we have our friends, some of us, they are friends or not, at Amazon, that in 2006, we've got the cloud. So the cloud is emerging, and now look, only 7 years later, look at the amount of data. I mean, this is just, it's exploding, right? Now we're talking not just about megabytes, but exabytes of data. in the cloud all the way to 2020, where a third of all of our data is passing through the cloud. And the significance of that, we've got our dear friends at Google here, and we love Google Cloud, and the significance of that is that it makes it all more accessible to everyone in this room, to the business, to basically be able to get at massive amounts of data, you know, very quickly, doing really interesting things to understand these insights. So you can go to the next slide. And you know, I kind of said it. It's like, why am I saying this? Why do you care to think about technological change? Because everyone talks about artificial intelligence. You know, great word, right? But the fact of the matter is that because all of this, now being able to intelligently mine the data can be put in the hands of everybody here, very cost effectively, getting at real, you know, really interesting business problems, really in-depth ones, and doing some pretty cool guest experiences as well on devices like a mobile phone. So we can go to the next slide, and I'm going to basically just simply say that I'll give you two examples. Like, you know, here is real-world applications of what this created. In the instance of Ulta Beauty, it created Glam Lab. This little device can look at your image. On the device, it basically analyzes your face, and then it can put effects of makeup and draw lipstick, eyeshadow, you know, it pretty quickly, so that you can virtually try on makeup. I mean, that's essentially what it's doing for digital innovation, is something like augmented reality or intelligently understanding an image. We can do it really quickly, we can do it really cost effectively. So we can create these new experiences. And I guess I would say that if that's not enough, because everybody in this room, the science is exploding in all of our industries. McDonald's, you know, is here, and you know, look at all of the different ingredients and the things that are emerging right in the food industry. But in health and life, it's like, if you think about the power of this, if analyzing life itself, is it important, right? Because of this, in 2003, 92% of the human genome was sequenced. In 2003. In April of this year, it was so important to people to think about things like diseases that they went ahead and now 100%, in April 2022, 100% of the human genome is fully sequenced. I mean, that's you know, think about, you know, like there's a ton of applications of it. It's not just about, like, you know, trying to understand diseases. There's all sorts of different things that can be done with that. Life itself, you know, where we all came from, we're all made up of the same, you know, elements, etc. So it's really, you know, things that we're able to do now have all been because of this evolution. And then we can go on to the next. So, next slide, please. So, as Jeff mentioned, we felt 4 years ago, I've been with Ulta Beauty a little over 10. 4 years ago, we started a dedicated digital innovation team. My whole background is tech. When I started at Ulta Beauty, I had responsibility for guest-facing systems, so I oversaw stores, marketing, e-com, and mobility. And we really felt it was important, as I mentioned, not only, you know, like all of the amazing consumer insights that our team here does, that we really do, you know, pay attention to and kind of track technological trends and how are they relevant to us. So we formed a dedicated digital innovation team. It was a part of our commitment to kind of double down on innovation. We publicly stated that we would do that. We're an innovative company. You know, our business model in beauty is innovative, and we felt like this was important digitally as well. Our mission, Jeff actually kind of talked about it, is that our mission, we're very, very focused on the guest. So we could be doing a lot of different innovation. We could be doing things in the warehouse. Our charge at the moment is very guest-centric. And so we've been put together. There's about 35 of us. We're global. We have a team in Uruguay. We have a team here. We have a team on the West Coast, and a phenomenal team in Latam. But our mission is to bridge the physical and digital, and create differentiated guest experiences that are relevant and useful for our guests. And then you can go to the next one. And this is just simply saying that, you know, we refreshed a little bit of our focus last year, And we said, as innovation, we were maturing, because we've only been around for 4 years, and we just said, let's get more purposeful, and let's get more experimental, and let's kind of just get out there further. Let's really start testing some of these new things and new solutions and technologies that are emerging. And then we can go to the next slide. Next one. This is just kind of a build-up. Why don't we go to the next slide? And how am I doing on time? Does anyone, what's good? Here's where we focus. At the moment, the digital innovation team, we focus on personalized, data-driven experiences. Everything that I just talked about, right? That underneath it, we couldn't do this without AI. We have 38 million active loyalty members. We have a massive breadth of product. We cover all the product categories. We have, Muffy knows it better than I do, hundreds, 500 plus brands. You combine the products, our guest base, and when you think about the fact that 95% of our transactions come from our loyalty members, that's a lot of data. We know a lot about all of our guests, and if we want to really get through that and cut through that quickly, like figuring out the best offer for somebody when we're going through millions of people and we're doing it online, we need all the things that we just talked about, right? So virtual try-on, Glam Lab, we're very focused on bringing a digital experience to virtual try-on because we're absolutely in beauty. We're all about sampling and experimentation and learning about the product. We have been dabbling in trying to take the physical store and bring it to life. Again, using your phone and maybe, using the camera and trying to explore and bring forward kind of interesting experiences that might engage you. Live shopping, social commerce, we think the world of it. We've been dabbling and experimenting with it. We haven't landed exactly on, one particular solution yet, but it's super important. Everybody, knows, how TikTok works and the tons of followers. And then there's something else that we, in innovation track, which we call technology-powered beauty products and services. And what it means is that we have seen in the beauty industry, we've seen things like robotics performing services, a robot who can apply false lashes, a robot that can do a manicure. And, beyond that, there are devices that are actually making makeup. Liquid lip, and it's printing exactly the color that you want. And so we're watching that, we're understanding, how does that fit. And then we can go on to the next slide. So, technology and the change, and again, I think it's really, we think that it's important that technology and where it's going, how you're relevant to it, how your business, kind of, what does it mean for your business that you think about that ultimately, right? And then when here's all this accessibility, etc., and there is a challenge, right? The challenge is effectively that, you can go to the next slide, which will kind of tee up why we'd like to chat just a little bit about low code, no code. And that's that there is a trend, okay? This basically says, once again, if you're watching this, there's a trend around this thing, and the number of patents just as, kind of skyrocketed. The investments, that's five times year over year. The amount of investment money going into this space, so it's like something's happening. Well, what's happening, and you can kind of roll to the next slide, is that less than 1% of the global population can code. Okay, I'm an old coder. Less than 1%, 0.5% in the world can code. So we've got all this, cool technology that that has advanced. And we've got a little bit of a challenge because we don't have enough technical resources to meet the demands of the business. Okay, so now what, right? Now what do we do? And so here's something, once again, that we thought it would be useful, a little bit educational to think about and to be aware of, which is that this is emerging. Low code, no code, basically a way for non-IT resources to be able to develop something. It could be some cool consumer insight. It could be a new product recommendation. It could be an experience. But there are tools, they're very sophisticated, they're getting better and better, and it's allowing non-technical resources to be able to create things. In fact, there's a lot of low-code, no-code tools that actually a lot of people in this room use that you may not think of. There's tools that you can create, really sophisticated prototypes. Figma, is one, as an example. And Vision, I think we use, we use some of that as well. There's tons of low-code, no-code, but Brian and I will talk a little bit more about it. And then you can just, I'm not going to kind of drain these statistics. They're, statistics from reputable organizations, Gartner, Forbes, right, that are basically, identifying that this is a trend, this is emerging, it is maturing, the tools are getting better and better, and there is this other thing that I'll leave people with. There is this concept called citizen development. So it's not just about here, like how many headcount can I hire in IT, or where can I go in the world to maybe hire them cost efficiently, but citizen development, it's a thing. I mean, it really is a thing. And citizen development is that anybody in this room, anyone in this room using these tools can create something that traditionally someone in technology would have done. So that's what's emerging. What's emerging is these tools that are actually making it easier, faster, to leverage all this compute, leverage all the data, and do some really interesting insights with it to drive the business. And we can go to the next slide, and then I think, Brian, I'm going to bring up Brian, my friend Brian Sagnathian. A little bit about Brian. We're going to talk about this trend. If Brian doesn't mind, I'll do an intro for him. Brian started his career at Apple. He was basically brought on as, back in the day, he's younger than I am, but as a developer, but he was brought into the secret products team. And he's the guy that worked on encryption activation platforms for the iPhone. So, Brian was at Apple for 8 years, has patents from Apple. He moved on from Apple. He's a serial entrepreneur, very successful. He kind of jumped into the media space. He started his own company, About Media. Customers of About were Warner Brothers, basically using his solutions for transcoding video. The company was acquired by Smith Micro, big IT company. Everybody hopefully knows Smith Micro, where he then went over to Smith and headed up their video and strategy teams. And then from there, he popped over to Turner Media and was helping there with their seed stage investment. And then he founded a company because Brian saw the future and thought this was something that not only did he want to participate in, but he felt that he should help and lead in creating the capability to tap into technology so that business people could really use it effectively. So Brian, come on up. Cool. So I don't know, Brian, I don't know, you guys kind of, hopefully you know me, that person without with a little bit of a challenge. Anyways, Brian, I think what people are kind of wondering, I hope, is like low code, no code. What is it? What's low code, no code? What's this all about? What's the difference?
First of all, Michelle and the Ulta team and the Brand Innovators team, thank you for having me. It's fun to be here. I love being in Chicago, especially the river.
Yeah, it's nice view.
So there's a lot to unpack here. So before I go into low code or no code, why is it critical for marketers? Because marketing is all about getting applications and capabilities and experiences in front of your consumers fast, right? And the digital transformation market, it's alone, it's like going to be 2.1 trillion by 2030. So things are moving at such a rapid pace. And if you want to keep your consumers excited, and because a lot of things that was like, let's take personalization, let's take recommendation. That was like, earlier it was like an innovation to have. But today it's a table stake. But if you were to actually bring all these technologies to market a lot very rapidly, you need a way, a technology, a methodology to develop faster. What really low code and no code means at a higher level is basically it's like Legos, right? It's like if your code is built in blocks. Think, like you're trying to build a home. If you build it from scratch, it takes you 1.9 years to build it in California. I don't know how long it takes in Chicago, right? But if your luxury home comes, your modern home comes in a truck and you can put them together piece by piece, bang, right? Under 6 months, just with permits. Same philosophy applies to low code. So a lot of the things that you need, functionality you need, actually comes in these blocks, and you can drag and drop and connect them together and build and deploy applications, especially marketing, data, consumer applications, a lot faster. So this is great for your IT team. It's great for your marketing teams. It's great for your data teams, right? The difference between low code and no code, because you hear this term constantly. The low code means basically you have the ability to drag and drop the blocks, but then you also have the ability to configure them via code using traditional methods. So the audience that low code is targeted essentially is IT teams, or even like engineering teams, or application developers, right? No code, on the other hand, is essentially designed for marketing teams, or even for like business analyst teams. And also anybody could use no code, right? I mean, you might already be, just like Michelle said, you might be using Figma or as a designer, or using InVision. It's actually no code. You don't have any code. You drag and drop and build your UX, right? Bubble is another example. Microsoft has something called Power BI, Power Code, right? Power Apps, which is also an application. Google has apps in that space, in the no code space. But then low code is critical is because as a company, you are thinking about bringing very powerful applications like AI, machine learning, all these things that you want to put in front of your consumers. You need to be able to customize them. So that's why low code is powerful, right? If you look at the world today, there are 25 million web engineers across all the traditional organizations. We're not counting the Googles and the Amazons of the world, or the Apples of the world. Just traditional organizations, right? Whose core business is not tech. But there are only 30,000 AI engineers. So there is a mega talent gap. By using these low-code solutions, you can actually, all these things come pre-packaged. You can build quickly, and with your existing web engineers, you can go to market a lot faster.
Awesome, awesome. But I guess one of the things is that this, what would you say related to the adoption? Like, how big is the market for this, and are companies really using it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, right now we are seeing a lot of adoption among enterprises, right? I think currently the market size is probably in the 25-30 billion range, but based on various IDC predictions, it's going to become 200 billion, right? Growing at about 31% CAGR, right? So if most of your marketers, you kind of know the CAGR growth style, right? Like retail is growing at consumer goods is growing at, 2.5, and retail is growing at 8 to 11, depending on what retail you look at, right? AI is growing at 37%, so low code is growing at 31%. So that's the benchmark, right, where it is. So it's growing rapidly. And based on a lot of the predictions, by 2024, 75% of the enterprises will have low code. And there will be not just one low code, but like 4 or 5 different low code platforms within a large company. So if you are in the BI business team, you might be using some data crunching low code applications. If you are in the consumer innovation team, you might have some AI building applications in low code, right? So depending on which side of the organization you are in, you will have some low code. And this is great for marketers because we benchmarked this type of low code development. How quickly can marketing teams go to market fast? You can actually get 10 to 17x speed, depending on the business case, right? So imagine you can release your products every time you go to IT or the technical teams, have the conversation. Hey, we gotta get this faster because our competitor has a similar feature. Now you have an ability by empowering the technical teams, and now you can go faster because the change is coming at a rapid pace, right? In the early 2000s, if you're a marketing or a business leader or a brand leader, your biggest challenge was, hey, I gotta get my business into the internet, and I have to get all these consumers into the internet, right? But now, the problem is not the internet. You have like 20 things sitting at you at the exact same time. There is AI, there is IoT, there is blockchain, there is data, there is all these things coming in. How do you respond faster? So you want to have a better methodology to respond faster, and this is one of the methods to do that, right? And Michelle, one of the things though is, your teams at Ulta have been using low code, right? When did you first sort of became aware of it? And tell us a little bit about how you started using it.
Yeah. I would say probably about 6 years ago, honestly, Brian, I remember prior to kind of heading up the digital innovation team, I remember being at a conference locally, and I think there were, and I kind of forget really the nature of the conference, but I think there were maybe there was one booth. There was someone at the conference, and they had, this was kind of emerging, a tool for low code, no code. And I remember, chatting with a colleague a little bit about it, and kind of, speculating on, is this really, we've wanted for a long time, right, tools that candidly, as an old technologist, right, that business people really can be empowered to, to basically create and build some of their own solutions, that it's not all threaded through IT. And and at that point in time, kind of 6 years ago, really, things were just kind of, emerging, so I remember that. For Ulta, really, our journey in using it, very candidly came right before we started the digital innovation team. We made a trip to the West Coast. Mr. Rago, once again, the master coordinator, one of his first assignments when he joined me at Ulta Beauty was to put together this tour, on the West Coast, and we connected with Brian and his co-founder, John Nordmark, and we did the tour of the possible. We had about 15 people, a good group of our executive team joined us. We went to Google, and at the time, we were very inspired, candidly, by kind of a visionary at Google who told the team, if you do one thing, like if you're coming to the West Coast for a reason, and kind of make it worth it. So even if it's just one thing, do one thing. And so when we got back, this is a true story, we decided that what we should do is we actually should begin a relationship with Iterate, because one thing that they were doing at the time, while these tools that they were working on were emerging, is they were connecting large enterprises like ours with startups. And so again, we're looking to create differentiated experiences. We want to do something that's cost effective, right? Not necessarily all the usual technology suspects per se. And so we wanted access to some of these emerging technological solutions to learn. And we formed a relationship with Iterate. By now it's been 6 years, and this is when we really, Brian, honestly began using the tool that Iterate created over the past few years called Interplay. And we did so because, again, it allowed us to quickly put together an experiment and understand some of the capabilities and the technologies. So one of our first things that we worked on was something we called conversational commerce, two-way communication. And our thinking was that it wasn't just, the two-way conversation wasn't just a chat. It was any kind of a conversation that we could have with a guest in any channel, right? So I could be having a conversation with Brian in Snap. I could be having a conversation in, basically Facebook IM, Twitter DM. I could be going onto a company's website, Ulta.com, and I could be talking to you there. So we had this vision of something we wanted to create that tapped into all these different capabilities and could understand the language, what people were saying, maybe interpret it. So think about everything we talked about really this morning. AI, learning the language, and then we wanted to plug in really quickly to things like Facebook, Twitter, Snap, right? And so we began experimenting and understanding where were our guests and and what was the type of conversation we had. So we used the low-code, no-code tool. We did this very quickly. I mean, we put together this and, it was literally, a month, and we kept iterating on it. Within probably 4 or 5 months, we had tested out Facebook, we tested out Twitter. We learned that, for example, many of our guests, if they want to find out about their order, they're probably not going to go to Twitter and ask Ulta Beauty, where's my order? Or if they had, like a comment on a product, they're going to go to different places to have different kinds of conversations. So with the tool, with the low-code tool, the thing that we were able to do is plug in and out very quickly components. We could create an experience. We had to do a little bit of the front end, right? But we could test out all these different channels, and then ultimately, where we landed is if you go to Ulta.com today, we actually very quickly, again, we're talking, again, probably a matter of, I don't know, a month or two, and Joe knows this well, because at the time, when he was with me and did with innovation, a lot of his team was leveraging this low-code, no-code tool to quickly experiment. But we ultimately wound up realizing, right, that really a lot of the conversation, more of like a guest services conversation, was best on Ulta.com. They were coming there already to look for how do they contact us, and we quickly were able to take what we had. Within probably several weeks, we had a web interface where we were understanding language. And once again, through the tool, what we could do is we didn't have to, we didn't have to write all of these intelligent AI to understand what the different words meant. A lot of those libraries are available, and through the low-code, no-code tool, we could just plug into them and feed it text that it understood. So I would say honestly, Brian, it was, when we really first began using it at Ulta was through digital innovation because of our need to experiment and understand new and emerging technologies, and then, this conversational platform, that for sure was a great example of something where we really saw how quickly we could get access to components and learn and then adapt to finally, kind of create something that has become, I'd like to think, really beneficial to the guest services team. Yeah.
So over time, Michelle, how did this all evolve, and why did you sort of choose low code opposed to other technologies? And also, what sort of benefits did you get, like from a business, from a marketing perspective?
Yeah, I think another kind of important thing to know about Ulta's digital innovation team, right, is we do have, we do not sit in IT. So I come from IT. We don't sit in IT. We sit in the business. We sit in digital and e-commerce. We report to our chief digital officer. So, Jeff is a peer of mine. We're in digital. And I think that's, super important. And this is the first time, 4 years ago, this is the first time for me, right, my entire career was in technology. And I have to tell you, I mean seriously, I mean this very, very sincerely, I love being, embedded in the business. I love it. Because having that, I like to think of technology as a weapon, and having that closer and embedded into the business teams really is empowering. So I think it's important to know that we do sit in the business. We think that that is a really effective place to be, and we make sure that we're not doing technology just for technology's sake, right? We're super focused on the guest. And so we want to basically leverage technology where we think it can make an improvement for our guest, hence we're in the business. And I do think that there are things like when we started, two of the founding members of Innovation are here. We started Innovation, there were 5 of us. We're a team of 35. And we grew through acquisition. You're going to hear from people, I think, today that are going to talk about their companies and how, they've really evolved, right? We did not have an M&A team. We do now. We made acquisitions, we grew. And, ultimately, I would say, Brian, that, because we're in the business, we do not follow the kind of the standard enterprise processes. We have that luxury. So we can do things differently, i.e. taking a different approach. We did it because we knew we could do it, much more, like we could do it faster, we could learn more, and we could get access to technology that, in IT, generally we're looking at different types of solutions. There's a different level of a risk that we can take in innovation. In the enterprise, there's just different things to worry about. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Perfect. No,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I mean, it's great to hear your experience, and hopefully it was helpful to the audience as well, because I think there's a lot that can be done with low code, right? It's all about going to market faster and serving your customers efficiently, right? This is something that we want to encourage everybody to use, learning from what Ulta has done and going to market quickly.
Maybe, Brian, I know we've just got a little bit of time left, but what are some other use cases? I mean, we've talked a little bit about how Ulta Beauty has used it, but what are some of your other customers doing with the tool?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Michelle. There is a video that I have, if you can play that. It'll give you a visual illustration, then I'll kind of walk you through some of those experiences. Oh, that's fine. That's okay. That's just a music. That's okay, yeah. So you're seeing different applications, right? All the way from things like license plate recognition, customer recognition, frictionless payment, right? Damage estimation, things like recommendation engines. So this is what Michelle was talking about, the Ulta Beauty, the conversational engine, right? Where you can go and communicate. Applications that have ability to like scan documents rapidly, right? This is the vocabulary that we built for beauty. So we built a vocabulary where any consumer can talk about beauty with us through the Ulta website, and the systems would understand it, right? Voice commerce, right? So I'm just showing the plethora of things that you can do. This is another thing that we did for customers for social networks. This was something that we did with Ulta for Christmas gift finding, right? So the possibilities are sort of endless, right? I like that word. The possibilities are beautiful. Similarly, the possibilities are endless in terms of what you can do with it, right? And also the business KPIs. As marketers, it's all about KPIs. So these are some of the KPIs that our customers did across, all the way from retail to convenience, right? Increase in engagement, increase in order value, right? It's been extensively used, at scale across 40 million monthly uniques, right? And it's actually deployed, I think, across 3,100 some stores and locations, right? So you can see that low code is real. It is scalable. It is actually deployed, right? So technically what I would encourage is that if you are a marketer looking at, in your organization, and how do I bring low code into action, the best thing is look at the low-hanging fruit. What are the use cases that I'm struggling today, especially consumer applications? That's a fast way to bring low code into being, right? The other area is if you are in the tech sector or in the innovation, like Michelle, innovation between marketing and innovation, look at like the advanced technologies, what I call the 5 forces of innovation: AI, IoT, blockchain, data, and startups. So if you have this need where you have to bring in applications, but it requires AI, you can't just go to an agency because most agencies don't actually build AI apps. So that's where low code is actually helpful, because your IT team can use these drag and drop and get to market faster. So there are all these use cases. So you sort of saw a plethora of things from one end to another in terms of what you can use. And Michelle, tell us a little bit about how AI is being used inside Ulta, because there is so much, especially with low code as well as even without low code. How are you guys leveraging AI? Because AI is a big force.
Yeah, I would say really quickly, just, like for us, AI, it's at the heart of our personalization strategy. So really, when we talk about recommendations, it's very broad. It's a very broad recommendation. It could be an offer, it could be product, et cetera. And it's mining this data. We are using AI to create different models so that we can serve up, recommendations that are personalized and right for you based upon a number of different things. You'll hear later today, a partner of ours, we think they just have a lot to offer and a lot to educate on. Depmind search. We've really, AI will be underneath our digital store of the future search platform. It's completely built on AI. And there, once again, we've leveraged Iterate and the Interplay tool, and we've kind of brought together, we've helped it. Using Interplay, one of the things that it's very good at, or low code, no code is very good at, right, is connecting into data sets. So if you need to connect into an enterprise data set, I don't care what the data set is. Could be, it could be unstructured, it could be on Google Cloud Storage, it can be big data, it can be a traditional relational data set. It's very good at connecting into different data sets and stitching things together. So in the example of search and AI, we actually have brought together our AI-based search engine and then our personalization platform. And so what we'll be doing is personalizing search at scale. So again, think about kind of the volumes that run through a $2 billion website like Ulta.com, and we'll be able to personalize whatever the business team wants very efficiently, for many members. And again, we're doing that. Like some of the work, it's a combination of AI underpinning everything, and then bringing it all together, kind of making those connections. We actually leverage the low-code, no-code tools to, kind of basically orchestrate and make all of that happen. So yeah, AI is, is important to us. Are we just about ready for the next person? So I don't know, we probably have no time for questions, but if anyone has questions, any questions? Otherwise, of course, we're around. Brian, I think, is going to be around. So I really appreciate you guys. You know, we thank you to the Brand Innovators team, to all of the sponsors for being here at Ulta Beauty. We appreciate you guys joining today. And no questions. We're gonna let. Yes,
Oh, wait.
a quick question.
So you guys obviously have a ton of first-party data that you had mentioned at the top, and I think about all of this technology as, it's only as good as the data that you're pulling in. So what are the other data sources outside of your own first-party transactional data that you are looking to have these type of AI tools stitched together?
Well, I am going to call upon, I'm looking at Dom or a couple of my marketing friends here because, and we obviously have, and I didn't see for the face, we have our key partner of ours, Rise, in the room. Where's Rise? We've got Rise here. And, and there are third-party data sets, right? I mean, we know so much about our own guests and on our property, right? But then what they're doing elsewhere, et cetera, right? I mean, obviously, we need relationships and partners, and we, like to be able to kind of give us some of those insights. Insights alone when we're thinking about paid search and what people are doing, right? We're going to leverage, we're going to, buy data. We're going to do a variety of things so that we can expand our own first-party data. It's true, our first-party data is amazing, but I don't know, Dom, if you would throw a few, like kind of ideas to the team here. Yeah.
Yeah, so one example is, obviously our first party is based on shopper data, right? But there's also a ton of engagement data too, right? The experiences, with our site, with our app, who we may not know exactly it's Andrew, right? But we can use that information, right, and collect it and then use it, with us models and things like that. So that's one example. And then Michelle also talked about our partners, right? Working with Google, Snap, they all have these really awesome data sets that we can tap into too. And how do you connect that, right, in the right ways and complement it, right?
Yeah, and to Dom's point, thank you very much, Dom, for kind of jumping in here. I think we'll hear from Dom later today as well. But our partnerships, right, are very key because all of our social partners, right, they know what's happening on their channels. Our affiliate, the affiliates themselves, the affiliates once again are going to really help out. If we're display ad, et cetera, right, and when to show me something if I'm on Comcast looking at my email, right, a lot of that is done through the partnerships we have, digital marketing partnerships, and then many of our tech and social, the business partners, yeah, so that we get kind of unique data from those different channels. Okay, cool.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you both for the time to talk about both what Ulta's doing with digital innovation and what Iterate's doing with Interplay. I'm excited, and they're hugging